The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and Your Sports Network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
And hello, everybody. Welcome into a Tuesday episode of Running Point, brought to you as always by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Let me pop them up in the corner so you can see their wonderful logo and know where to go. Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same every day on this show. Got a great show for you today. We're going to have another softball preview. Christina Dugan from Ursuline going to hear our interview I was able to conduct with her. Ursuline should be one of the top teams in the area. They were a breath away from going to the state semifinals last year. Lost on a walk-off grade 7th inning by Maslin Tuslaw. Actually, it was an extra innings if I remember correctly. Tuslaw went on to go to the state championship game and eventually end up as state runners-up to Wheelersburg. But it was a great run for Ursuline. They bring back a lot of their talent from last year, and mainly the record holder for home runs in a season in Mia Opala. That bat is going to bring some thunder to their lineup, and she's also a great pitcher in the circle. So Ursuline should be good to go. We're going to hear from Christina Dugan in a little bit, and we also have an interview that we're going to play for you today from Kate Crispin, and it's just a great conversation about mental health, and especially in this transition between winter and spring sports, where a lot of athletes are going into their third season. This is where we see a lot of gas out mentally for athletes that are just putting way too much pressure on themselves to succeed at the highest level 3 times in a row from fall to winter to spring. It's a grueling school year if you're trying to keep your grades up, trying to keep your social life intact, and also trying to compete at the highest level and keep yourself at the peak of your athleticism. It can be a strain, and Kate Crispin came on a little bit ago and did a great conversation about mental health in the students and some of the resources that you can go to if that's something that you are struggling with. It was a great conversation. Gotta play that with you. I think it's timely, like I said, in this little break between winter and spring sports to have a conversation like that here. Our softball of the day, like I said, a different one every day. This is from the Chicago Bandits from the MPF I believe this is 2015, and a good friend of mine, Brianna Moss, right here in the middle. A lot of good friends on that team. Like I said before, the NPF and having season tickets to the Akron Racers just opened the doors to a lot of great friendships that I treasure a lot, with a lot of athletes that were at the absolute top of the softball world. A lot of big names that I was able to meet and build relationships with, and so happy that that Chicago Bandits team was able to be one of them. And I have a lot of friends that are on that ball right there, and that'll be sitting there today. We'll have a new one tomorrow. So those are the softball of the day, I guess I should say. As we go on today, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of, I want to kind of lead into this Kate Crispin interview a little bit more, because then we're going to play it, of course. But like I said, this is kind of the point of the school year where I think when we see kind of gassing out and kind of the tiredness and fatigue that sports can bring on an athlete's mind. It's usually in this in this period between winter and spring because a lot of kids if they're making a deep tournament run. There's not a lot of break there, and especially if they're successful in the fall sports, you start to wonder where do you take a breath. And a lot of these kids are kind of dealing with that, like where do I take a breath? And we see a lot of kids in the YSN family starting to succeed a lot. And one of the things we talk about in this interview is what kind of pressures success can bring. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that. We give this, we put this limelight on success, which rightfully so. If you go out and you compete and you succeed and you win a state or you play really well or you break your program's record or anything like that, you deserve your flowers. You deserve the limelight. You deserve to be, praised for sure. You've put a lot of work in to get there. But I think what people don't talk about a lot is the pressures that success can bring on the rest of your athletic career. I mean, especially like you come out as a freshman, and we had two freshmen of the year this year that both had extremely good freshman seasons. Great job, amazing freshman year, and we've talked about how cool it is to kind of make an immediate impact as a freshman on the varsity floor right out of middle school. But the flip side of that, and the way we got to be careful as a kind of sports family, especially with high school athletes, is what we do when that incredible freshman season, and then all of a sudden it's almost expected that they're going to explode and go into be phenomenal athletes. And I think where you draw the line from reasonable expectations and being able to kind of see where the trajectory could go and be like this is a possibility. The line between that and putting like a hard expectation, like if this doesn't happen it's a bust, can be very murky right after success. In whether we're talking about freshmen that are going into their sophomore year and trying to kind of live up to the standard they put on their freshman season, or you're just talking about maybe a state championship team. The next year they're bringing a lot of people back, and a lot of people are saying, well, let's just go right back. I think we saw Springfield deal with that, in their football run. Obviously they were able to get back to state several times, but I think once you got there, the next year from the outside, there was almost the hard expectation of like, people were saying state championship or bust for the Springfield team. And I imagine that there's somebody on that team that had to feel the pressure of that, whether they would say it, admit to it or not. They had to kind of hear that noise and kind of feel like, well, if I don't get to a state championship, what's my value as an athlete? And sometimes success, as awesome as it is and how much it should be praised, what we forget is sometimes success can let these athletes fall into a trap of putting their value and identity into their successes. And then if something does happen where they don't get to state the next year or they don't have the sophomore season that maybe it lives up to that freshman year, all of a sudden the value and identity kind of gets eroded. And then all of a sudden, you start to deal with a lot of thick, heavy mental health problems because you've put so much stock of your self value, self identity into that success that you had early in your career, and you don't know what to do when adversity hits and you didn't get back to the state championship, or like I said, you didn't put up the points that you did your freshman year. And I think we dive into a problem of that, and one of the issues is as an early middle school, elementary, whatever, when you're developing as an athlete or as a student, we have lost the ability to be uncomfortable. And I think that's one of the big conversations we have with Kate Chrisman that we're gonna once again play the interview in a little bit after we lead up to this. The ability to be for a kid to be in uncomfortable situations. Now, safety is obviously not uncomfortable to the point where they're not safe, but uncomfortable in the point where they have to deal with a little bit of adversity and not expect it to just go away and not expect it to just be dealt with without effort. I think is one of the things they run into. And when we're talking about success and then coming off of success, I think that's one of the things they run into. It's like, okay, we've won, or we've done this, we've reached the peak, we've had a great season. Now, eventually, adversity is going to hit. What do we do because we're so used to winning? I know it was crazy. I remember when Trevor Lawrence got drafted a couple of years ago. One of the things that people were saying about him, and this is true, it's a valid point, but it just sounded kind of off to hear it. He never really lost. He never had to deal with the adversity of being in a losing situation because, he won state championships in high school, and then he, won national championships in college. Until the playoff game this year, he never lost a Saturday football game. Like that's winning, winning, winning. And then all of a sudden, how are you going to react to adversity losing? Because inevitably, if you're a number one draft pick, you're not going to a winning football team, right? So that was one of the questions they had when he got drafted. You've won so much. How are you going to handle adversity? And I think that's actually a really smart question to have way before you get to that point in your career, right? Like if you win a state championship, how are you going to bounce back from not winning? Because there's no guarantee that you're going to win that state championship next year. South Range softball, when I was in not when I was in high school, but when I was in, the before YSN, great example. They go to state in 2016. They're state runners up. They lose that game by a couple of runs. Everyone felt like they were in it. They bring back the entire roster next year, and softball is a fickle sport. They don't make it back to state, and I think a lot of people probably could have said it from the outside, man, that was a wasted season because that was a lot of talent and a lot of state championship experience that this kind of didn't get back to that tournament in 2017. But if that's the mindset, if that's what the students are hearing, then you can see what kind of negative impact that can have on their confidence, self-worth, identity. And that's, I think, one of the things that we have to guard against when we're trying to impact lives of these students, whether it be from the media, whether it be from the coaches, whether it be from the parents. We have to realize that we have a uh, sphere of influence in the students' lives, and we have to be able to kind of navigate that, and I think it's a great conversation. I'm not gonna take any more away from it. I wanted to kind of give a little bit of introduction to the conversation and kind of guide it to that, but I'm not gonna take any more away from it. I'm just gonna play it, and then we'll come back and hear a couple of closing thoughts. But here is Katie Chrisman. You might know that last name, daughter of great coach Dave Chrisman, right now the head coach of the Columbiana girls basketball team, but also has done a lot of work in the softball world as well. So once again, here is an interview about the mental health of athletes and the mental health of students from Kate Chrisman. Anthony Hartley with you, and we are having a very special guest today, Kate Chrisman, to join us. And we're here to talk about mental health, and we thought this would be a really good time to talk about it as we kind of put the bow on a basketball and fall and winter sports season and gear up for the spring sports season. I think this is the time when kids start to get really gassed out. They're going for their third sports season of their high school, of their high school year. This is a good time to talk about mental health. Kate Chrisman, you might know that last name. She's got a pretty significant father that is a legendary coach in his own right, and she is a former athlete as well in the high school ranks. A little bit before YSN's time, unfortunately, we couldn't get you on the network.
I know. I mean,
what the heck?
Where was that at when we were going through?
We got you now. Kate, thanks for coming on. Before we dive into the meat of this, why don't you go over kind of your history and your qualifications and why you've decided to come on today?
Yeah. One, shout out to YSN. Like, you guys have done such a good job of covering my dad and everything that he's accomplished, and you guys are always really big supporters of him. And that's my guy right there. So I appreciate that. I graduated from Lisbon in 2013. So I'm from the area. I went to YSU, got my master's in school counseling, which is what I'm currently doing now. I've been doing that for about 4 years. I'm also getting my clinical license at John Carroll right now, so I can do some work on the side with different agencies. So mental health is kind of my passion here, but also sports. Like I coach for middle school softball. I was coaching girls basketball for a while. And that's kind of led me to this point here, you know, working with my own middle school girls and tackling some of these ideas of like self-esteem, anxiety, depression, just kind of how to ride the wave when it comes to mental health.
And you messaged me a couple of weeks ago and just, you expressed the thought that you were just seeing it more and more as we kind of go on. I guess the first thing is, what kind of things do you think have made it become more and more prevalent the younger ages you get? Like middle school now, mental health issues are becoming more and more apparent than maybe they were when you and I were in middle school back in the early 2010s.
Definitely. I think, you know, COVID has a lot to do with this. I think it was a strange and scary time for a lot of people, the adults included. And we're seeing a lot of our kids kind of going through some of that now, the side effects from it. Social distancing, they weren't seeing each other like they would normally do, just kids being kids. And also, you know, like social media, everything is instant gratification right now. So how many likes you're getting, who's viewing your posts, who's saying what about it, who's following you, like how many followers you have. And that's big with our middle schoolers right now. And it's a struggle trying to be able to balance that and trying to figure out who you are as a person. And so developmentally where they're at, they're just getting hit with everything left and right.
I think you bring up a good point because social media is instant gratification. But what COVID did is it stripped you away of all the instant gratification you had outside of social media. You couldn't go out and play with your friends whenever you wanted to. You couldn't go out and play your sports when you wanted to. You couldn't even go to school for a long period of time like the way you wanted to.
Right.
What do you think that dynamic had where they could get instant gratification on social media, but they really couldn't get it anywhere else? And they were kind of forced to be uber patient in every other aspect of life. And that those two dynamics kind of clashing with each other.
Yeah, that's the paradox here, right? Was that they had to use social media, and that's when it was like really good because that was the only way that you were seeing people. But now they've lost that skill. Now we're trying to do life as normal. It's school all day, every day. We're not social distancing. You know, the masks are gone. Like, and it's still, they would rather text each other and communicate that way than like say it face to face. And I think that's led into some of the anxiety when it comes to performance is they haven't had to do these things in 3 years. Like everything was virtual. And now there is the expectation that you're going to have a conversation with someone face to face. People expect you to perform, especially when it comes to athletics or even in the classroom. And they don't have that distress tolerance built up in their brain like maybe you and I had when we were going through school because we didn't have access to a lot of these things.
Right. When you think of that expectation, you know, a lot of sports now is like it's almost taboo to expect too much out of a kid. You don't want to toe that line of coaching too hard versus, you know, you're going to make them distasteful for the sport or you're going to tick somebody off or whatever it may be. We're in that realm of sports right now where you're towing that line. What's that kind of like from a kid's point of view where, like you said, it's kind of harder and harder to hold them accountable to stuff, especially at the younger ages?
It's tough. Even as a coach now, these are things that I have to be mindful of and how I approach students. My conversations towards them, how I coach them has to be different than maybe how I would have coached a student 4 years ago. And it's a struggle. And I feel for coaches everywhere because I think everyone's kind of experiencing the same thing right now. And I also feel for the kids because this is their norm now. This lack of accountability, in a sense, is kind of their norm. And that's where, you know, I'm hitting my point with it is how do we teach these kids that accountability is necessary and it's going to benefit them in the long run, like not just in sports, but even in academics, but when they're an adult, because right now they're in this nice little bubble, right? Like you're in school and even in high school, like you have this nice bubble around you. But once that bubble's gone, work expects you to show up on time and do what's asked of you and is going to hold you accountable. And so what are you going to do when things don't go your way or you're told no? And that's what we're experiencing right now.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if you had the same struggle, but biggest struggle going from high school to college for me was all of a sudden, no one cared if you did your work or not. Like there was no one there saying you have to do this to get this. Like you were all completely you had to take your own stuff and your own responsibility. There was no one there to kind of tell you like this is what you have to do. There was no guide rails anymore. Did you kind of struggle with that too when you moved from high school to college?
Yeah, I mean that when we talk about transitions, like it's 5th to 6th grade is always a big transition, like going to the middle school. And then 8th grade, being a freshman in high school, big transition. And then high school into college is like the next giant transition that you make. And that's when you are totally outside of the bubble, right? Like you're just expected. You're one of thousands that are there to get your degree. And no one is going to be there to kind of hold your hand and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Right. It's almost like they're not even expected anymore. It's like you either do it or you don't. We don't have any expectations of you. You're just a student. A lot of my professors, it was like, whether you do the work or you don't, I'm here to kind of give you what you need, but I don't expect you to do it or expect you not to do it. It's just you have to have those expectations yourself.
Yeah, it's your responsibility, and whatever
Right.
your education ends up looking like is going to be on you.
So what can you think we can do to better prepare kids for that before they kind of step right out of that bubble and it's almost a huge culture shock?
Yeah. I think one of the big things is, like I said, building up that distress tolerance in our kids. And what I mean by that is like, let them experience being uncomfortable. So being told no, maybe not being a starter when you feel like you should be a starter, or even as a parent, like I'll let my kid talk to the coach about it because that's an uncomfortable thing to do. Like let them try that out, to have that conversation. Experience pushing yourself and doing things that you didn't think you could do. Because right now, and I get it because we're coming off of COVID and like mental health is through the roof in the United States and no one wants to push it too far because you all love and care for your kids, like you want them to be happy and healthy. But part of that is being able to learn how to be uncomfortable and know that you're still going to be okay at the end of it.
I've experienced a lot of parents struggle with that, like if they're going to have that conversation with their coach, maybe it doesn't go the right way. Maybe they don't say the right things. Maybe they say something emotional that they don't exactly mean in the moment, but the parent is so scared to let that happen that they kind of take over. And I feel like that's when things get really murky in high school athletics, especially, is when the parents are saying stuff that maybe the kids feel, but the kids aren't saying it themselves, if that makes sense. Do you see a lot of that too?
Yeah. And like I said, I get it. I'm not a parent, and I know that being a parent is one of the hardest jobs that there is. And I won't discredit that at all. Like there's no blueprint for it. I think everybody is just trying to do the best they can. But kids are so resilient. And even as adults, we are so resilient. And being told no once, or losing that game, or not getting the start that day, like those things are not going to essentially physically put your kid in harm, which is what we feel when we're experiencing anxiety, is that we're in danger. They're very much like okay and still in that safe bubble, and they need to learn how to experience that disappointment, that no, and be able to push through it, to know that next time it happens, I have that memory to call on of, okay, I'm feeling anxious, but I've already experienced this before. I know I can make my way through it. I'll be okay at the end. And it like eliminates that major reaction or like soul crushing moment that they might have otherwise if they never get to experience being told no or something uncomfortable.
We're gearing towards spring sports season, and for a lot of our athletes, because we cover a lot of small schools, this is their third sport or maybe their fourth sport that they're playing in a consecutive row, and that can lead to a lot of not serious mental health issues, but gassing out and trying to kind of keep themselves at that level, and then all of a sudden they find themselves almost crashing. Obviously, everybody's different. Some people thrive off that. Some people don't exactly know when enough is too much or when they're pushing themselves too much. From your experiences and also working with players yourself, how do you guide a player through that, like trying to do as much as you can, but not trying to do too much, and trying to stay away from mentally gassing yourself out as an athlete, but also trying to make sure that you're giving it every sport, everything you got if you commit to it and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a balance between the two. There's that saying of you can't pour from an empty cup. Our athletes are not exempt from feeling that same thing, especially like you said, you're coming off back-to-back seasons. This one is your third. You're still expected to do your schoolwork. Like there's a lot of expectations there. I know for me with like my girls and like my athletes, you just need to be able to communicate that to me that like right now I'm really not feeling like this is my best day. Can I take a break? And we can talk about that. And mental health days are real for adults too. And sometimes kids need them as well, that you're not always going to be your best self every day. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's more the ability to acknowledge that and then still come back the next day and say, all right, I'm feeling better. Like we can still do this.
The other thing I wanted to kind of touch with you is obviously we have a lot of athletes right now that are experiencing a lot of success. We've seen in the last several years a lot of teams in the YSN family make it to a state tournament, make it to a state championship in football and things like that. With success comes glory and everything and all the rah-rahs, but it also comes a lot of pressure with success. Like, hey, you're successful in this, you have to go do it again. Like you are expected now to almost go out and repeat that in everything you do. What are some of your thoughts on that and how kids are supposed to deal with the expectations that some of these successes can bring to their mental health?
You got to be realistic, right? Because at the end of the day, they're still kids and you might do it one year, and it's always great to have that goal and like that standard for yourself that you should do it again, but still giving yourself grace in the moment that it might not happen for you. Like we talk about March Madness, like there's a ton of teams that are expected to go the distance that probably won't make it through the first round.
Virginia just lost.
And some days it's like that, right? Like it's not always going to be your time in your moment. And again, it's like, can you experience that disappointment and that failure, even if it's just that game in that day, and not let it predict the rest of your career? Like, are you able to bounce back from that? Because it's going to happen to everybody. Like even the really good schools that we've seen time in and time out, like a Berlin Highland, like not every year is going to be their year, but I can guarantee you there's going to be more that are their year than there's not, because they have set that standard for themselves.
We talked about social media a little bit earlier, and obviously we can't have a discussion of mental health without talking about social media because it's such a part of these kids' lives. It really is. I've always thought social media is a tool. I'm a social media director. You use it, and like every tool, if you use it right, it can really help you, and if you use it wrong, it can really hurt you. It's so important for these athletes to be on social media and to kind of, especially ones that want to be recruited, you got to be able to sell yourself a little bit and get yourselves out to coaches. What kind of advice do you give to athletes when they're navigating the world of social media?
It's athletes and parents. I know like at the school, we'll always host basically like how to parent in a digital age for our parents, because it's new for them as well. But with my athletes especially, it's unfortunately, like once it's out there, which is how I always approach it, of you have to be so responsible. But you put a cell phone in the hands of a middle schooler, they don't have that part built up yet to be responsible on it. So like I fully expect them to make some mistakes and be irresponsible with it. And then we got to kind of coach it through them. But like for high school athletes, this is your digital reputation, right? Like that's the message that I give them, that you're creating who people are going to view you as the second you post something. So if there's even a doubt in your mind that if my parents saw this, if my coaches saw this, if my college saw it, would it be an issue? If it's even close to that, we got to rethink it. We probably shouldn't post it. But that takes a lot of time, especially when you're trying to keep up with what everybody else is doing and what other kids are posting. And if you're serious and you want to go to the next level, it takes a lot of self-discipline, especially with the social media piece, because you're not going to be able to do everything that the other kids are doing. You're held to a different standard. So it's a big learning curve, and it's going to continue to be because technology is only going to continue to grow.
when you were an athlete, we had social media. It wasn't like non-existent, but it wasn't what it was today.
No.
What were some things that you went through in high school that you kind of draw on? Like, man, I remember when this happened, or I remember how much social media has changed or how big it's gotten since I was in high school.
I mean, the kids here like call me cringy because I'll be like, I had MySpace, and they're like, what's MySpace? And I'm like, the biggest drama you had was like who just dropped out of your top 8 friends.
Oh yeah, no, that was big.
Keep up with that. To be honest, I think we were a little bit lucky that we went through at the time that we went through, because it wasn't as prevalent then. Like, it was big, but it wasn't as big. Like, obviously there was still like some cyberbullying stuff that would go on, like pictures get posted, people make mean comments or say hurtful things. There was like a little bit of that during my time in school, but it was not as big as it is now. And like, you didn't have access to as much as you did back then. Like, it just felt like everything was a lot harder, or like you had a computer room in your home that your siblings, like, you had to share and take turns on, you know, and there was like more parental supervision with it, with what you were doing.
Right.
So my time as an athlete was pretty smooth, thank goodness, when it came to social media. I did not have to try and manage as much as kids are managing right now.
I want to bring up some of the positives too, because I don't want to sit here and act like social media is like the root of all evil. Because this is one of the things that I saw growing into it now, social media now compared to then. Social media has made it easy to get close with people that don't go to your school and athletes that don't go to your school.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when we were in high school, the animosity between teams was a lot more tense. Like, you really did not like this school, and there was no way to not break that ice. And sometimes, you know, rivalries got a little bit out of hand on the court or on the field or on the diamond, whatever it may be. Now, I don't think, maybe it's just my opinion, but like, it feels like rivalries aren't as intense or aren't as tense to the point where I really just don't like this school and there's really no reason why. I hate those people. I feel like back when we were in school, like, we took rivalries almost too seriously, to the point when like we really did not like XXXX. Well, what's your take on that and the ability to build friendships outside of your school with social media compared to what we were able to do back when we were in high school?
For social media, I think that's one of the pros, right? Even keeping up with like distant relatives, you know, like, that's what we use it for now, is a way to connect. And I think that's great. I think our athletes now, that is the big thing. You can keep up with kids from other schools. Like, this girl is over here in Illinois, and like, I played travel ball with her, and I get to keep up with all of her stuff, and like, we can be in communication. Like, everyone posts videos. Like, I think that's the really great part about it. But as far as the rivalries go, it is a very different experience from being a player. And like, you know what it was like in the original ITCL back in the day. Like, those rivalries were, I mean, they were intense, and you would have major student sections, and like, the boys would show up for these girls' games, and it was intense. It was, in that moment in your heart, like, you did not like that person, you did not like that team, and you felt it to your core. And it's like, maybe after the game will be cool, but for right now, we have bad blood. I don't see too much of that at the high school level here anymore so much. And especially with middle school, I think that's the part of competition that they don't understand yet. Like, a big part of my job now, coaching middle school girls, is teaching them what it actually means to compete, because that's just not in their brain yet, that's what it should look like.
We could sit here and talk forever. I mean, this could be a half an hour long interview. I want to kind of get some like closing thoughts and advice that you can give to kind of navigate through all this mental health discussions and things that you see on your everyday life that you think could help people if they are dealing with this, whether it be a parent dealing with their kid, or maybe a student that's watching this that needs kind of someone to reach out to. What are some of your final thoughts on this conversation?
Yeah. When it comes to mental health, obviously, you know, I'm talking a lot about getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. There's boundaries within that. If anyone is ever feeling like that sense of hopelessness or their depression, and it's hitting really deep into like some unsafe levels, always seek help from a licensed professionol. Columbiana County has some really great agencies. You can type in 999 and like get a hold of someone if you're feeling suicidal. Like there's outlets, and I would encourage athletes to use those. Obviously, I'm a school counselor, so I'm going to put a lot of respect out there for our school counselors across Ohio. Reach out to them. That's part of why we're here, and we have new training. We're trained to help you and assist you in those things. And get comfortable talking to your parents about the hard stuff too. They love you. They care for you. That's what they're here for. And as parents, when your kids tell you these things and you're feeling uncomfortable, lean into that experience too, and know that there's so many resources now because of the mental health crisis that they're going to be okay. They'll be able to bounce back, but being able to reach out and communicate how you're feeling.
I want to take the time to give a shout out to one of our sponsors who helps out with all this, the Insight Clinical Counseling and Wellness in Columbiana. So they're just one of many resources, but obviously they're one that kind of sponsors YSN. So want to give them a shout out as well. If you need anything with that, you can reach out to Insight Clinical Counseling and Wellness for all your needs. You see them on our commercials all the time. One of many resources, as Kate so brilliantly said. Kate, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Like I said before we started, it's been way too long. It's great to catch up with you a little bit. Congratulations on everything you've already accomplished. And we know that you're going to go on and do even greater things in your future. Thanks again for coming on and talking to us about a very important subject as we gear up for what should be a very exciting spring sports season.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like I said, big fan of YSN. You guys have been a big fan of my dad, so much respect.
Kate Crispin, and what a great conversation that was, a poignant conversation. I think we touched on everything that needs to be touched on in this, like I said, this gap between winter and spring sports. There's a lot of athletes get ready to continue that grind and face their third or even fourth sport of the high school season, the high school year. It can be a grind. It definitely can. It can put a lot of strain on you. And we want to make sure that we're there for those people, and we give them really good resources, really good outlets if they are struggling with mental health. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get back to some softball previews. We have Christina Dugan from Ysn to hear from next on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
Why choose local? Because you live here, work here, learn here, relax here, and celebrate here. 21 WFMJ is our Valley's only locally owned TV station, and our focus is local. Other TV stations don't have that same focus, as their owners are somewhere else. But 21 WFMJ is rooted in the Valley. Local people making decisions that affect your life, right here where you live.
You're looking to your future, preparing for your goals, and they're closer than you think. Because here, success is part of the plan. It's a place where academic and social opportunities are meant to prepare you for life, not just the next 4 years. You'll be equipped to face new challenges and turn hard work into a career. You're ready for your success to take root. And here's where it starts. We are Youngstown State University, and proud.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsurancesolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com. So glad that you're able to join us on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon. We're always brought to you by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same here on this show every day. As promised before the break, we have another softball interview to get to. Christina Dugan, the head coach of the Ysn Irish softball team, took time to help us preview the season a little bit earlier, and we're going to play the interview with her now. So enjoy this talk with the head coach of the Irish softball program, Christina Dugan. Anthony Hartwig here with as we continue another spring sports preview, joined by the head coach of the Ysn softball team in Christina Dugan. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so before we start talking about this season and everything you expect from the girls, let's have a little bit of a reflection on last year. Obviously, a tough loss in the regional finals for you guys, but a lot to come back from and a lot to kind of take from last year. When you're reflecting on last year and you're trying to take things from it to build from this year, what were some of your takeaways from what you guys saw on the diamond last year?
You know, we had a very great, talented team, and I think one of the biggest takeaways we try to. I mean, that's actually what we preach all the time. Like, what are the positives? What can we move on from? What can we carry with us? And then, what kind of things can we improve on and get better, in order to be better? And I think, one of those things are like looking at each other as better than ourselves and having that team camaraderie and supporting one another, and getting to know each other as people first and foremost. So that's one thing that I think this team has really embraced this year.
You know, it was your first year as the head coach of this team last year. What did you learn about yourself as a coach that you're trying to take into this year? Maybe yourself getting better as a coaching philosophy or anything like that that you're bringing into this season.
So, we focus a lot on the mental aspect of the game, and we brought that into into like on a regular basis, into practice. We definitely want to continue that. I think the girls, that's one thing that they probably would want to improve on in general as a team. Like, that's if we had a weakness that we want to be more confident in ourselves. I think that they believe in them. Like, they are great players. If they could just believe that they're great players all the time. And so that's definitely something that we, focus on and then want to continue to focus on, in a more, just maybe a little bit more than we did last year. So
as we transition into talking about this year, obviously you did have to say goodbye to a couple of really good seniors, but you're also bringing back a lot of talent. I want you to highlight your roster, some of the big names that are coming back for you, but then also some of the new faces that'll be putting on the Ysn uniform for you and will be gracing that varsity diamond.
So we have, Mio Palick. She, tied our school record for the most home runs last year. She's a stud in the circle. And we have Liza Barbado. They're both seniors this year. Liza, who comes up clutch all the time, in good hitting situations. And her bat honestly hasn't looked bad. She's rocking it right now. And we have a lot of young talent. And honestly, if girls step up into roles, we have a lot of potential, and I think that they will. And we have Hannah Saluga, who's going to hopefully step up into being a catcher, for us as a junior. We have other juniors too, like Gia Chavone, Savannah Patron, and Ari Went, Lily Dietz. Like, those girls are really going to contribute, and maybe they didn't get the opportunity to contribute as much last year, but I think that they're really going to shine this year.
We talked about the seniors that you had to say goodbye to last year. Obviously, they were great leaders, and you're going to ask the new leaders to kind of step up and be a little bit more vocal this year. When you're thinking of players that you're going to really lean on as leadership on the field, who are some players that come to mind, whether it be vocal or example leaders or anything like that?
I think that's one thing that is a good takeaway from last year moving into this year. We did have such a strong senior class, which you want. We like we're really encouraging the girls to all be leaders in their own way. It doesn't matter whether you're a freshman, whether you're a sophomore. I mean, we have some little freshmen coming up that are gonna shine for us. We have our sophomores that had varsity experience last year that I think are gonna, when they step up into their roles, they're gonna be some. I keep saying it, but they're gonna be studs. And we all want them to be their own person, but also be a leader in their own way. And I don't think it needs to rely on one senior or one person. I think it needs to be a team effort. And I think that's a good takeaway from last year too.
When you're talking about that, I mean, how much are the footprints of last year's leaders kind of on this team where they were able to watch those girls and those seniors lead, and now everyone kind of understands what it takes to conduct themselves that way? How much do you think that legacy of the seniors last year is going to last this year on this roster?
I think it's great. Like, some of the girls came and watched us indoor scrimmage. One came and just like helped us do play calls, some of the seniors from last year. One of the other seniors is like helping with lessons off on the side. And so I think that they're leaving their legacy, and the girls on our team this year now are saying, okay, this is what we want to do better, and this is what we want to continue. And I think that's kind of happens year in and year out. Once you step up into the role, you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. Different or the same, but I'm excited to see the girls be leaders this year in all different ways. So
let's talk about the schedule that you guys have put together. I mean, every Ursuline sport, you're putting together a really tough schedule. It's always testing yourselves, but this year especially, because you've moved up a division into the Division II tournament, you really have to sharpen your tools before district. So when you're thinking about your schedule and the one that you've put together this year, what are some teams that pop up that you're really excited to kind of test your girls against?
Yeah, so we were hoping to scrimmage Stowe today. It's just too wet, and the field just wasn't ready. But so that would have been a good test for us. We're trying to get some of those bigger D1 schools to help, like the previous Memorial Tournament. We got in that, and we're excited to see Austintown, a local school that that it has a good program. We are also seeing Walsh, and I'm sure that will be a great game as well. But yeah, it was tough scheduling because those D2 schools, that's who we play, that's who we were playing up to, like, help us. And so now we get to be right with them, and it'll be good.
Was there ever any thought of, like, I don't know if I want this team on our schedule again, because now we're kind of showing our cards a little bit because we're going to be in their bracket and we're going to be in their tournament?
I mean, I feel like anything could change.
Right.
And so, like, we could not play with weather. It could be early in the season versus late in the season. I think getting to see good teams is just, that's what's probably important the most. So I understand why some coaches don't want to play or do want to play, but it's,
I think in other sports you can have a perfect world, but in softball and baseball you have to just take what you get, man. The weather, whatever you play, like, let's just go. Talking about field conditions and weather, you guys got to play a lot more than most last year because you guys got to call YSU home, and obviously their field is well kept, and there are a lot of days, I should say, where other high school fields are unplayable, but you guys could play at YSU. What's it mean to you to have that as a home field and to be able to have another season sharing a softball diamond with a Division I softball team?
I'm very grateful, and I know the girls love it. But we're very grateful for the opportunity to get to play there. So I played for YSU and never got to play there. So I'd like to tell the girls, like, you guys are so lucky, like, you got to play somewhere where I never even got the opportunity. Like, I played at McCune Fields. So I don't know. I always joke with them about that, but
What kind of advantage does it kind of give you? We saw the big stage never really got too bright for you guys, no matter where you would go, whether it be making it to state and you go to Firestone Stadium, or whether it be, in regionals. But you guys play in a Division I stadium already, so you're kind of used to this atmosphere. You'll have a lot of fans show up at your games. How much of an advantage is that down the road to expose your girls to a big atmosphere type stadium every time they play a home game?
I definitely think that helps, because you try to prepare them for the best and what they are going to see, and you want to prepare them for when bad things happen and good things happen on and off the field, and so giving them an opportunity that they could see down the road, it makes them more comfortable, of course. But yeah, we'll get to play St. Vincent, St. Mary's too. I left them out, but I think we'll get to play them too. So that will be nice to get to play on turf with them.
You got to you also brought up how you focus on the mental aspect of the sport, and that's so important in softball, being mentally strong. What kind of exercises do you do with this team to keep their mental mind where it's supposed to be, and try to keep them engaged mentally as much as they are physically?
So we just do a lot. We journal. To be honest, the girls have journals. We do reflections. We do a lot of goal setting and kind of reflecting on that. We also look at like our teammates and what kind of pros and positives that they bring, because it's not just all about us out there, and getting to know them as people is important. There's a lot of great inspirational videos or clips and things like that. So we do try to do that every, once in a while. Oh, definitely once a week, but sometimes I like to sprinkle in a couple more.
This program is also excellent at always giving back to the community and having community service. What does that do for this team to be able to take the people that support them or the community that supports them and take time to give back to that community?
So we have a great relationship with Zion Lutheran Church in Cornersburg, and we get to serve with them once a month. When season starts up and regular practice starts up, we kind of slow down, but the girls look forward to it and they love it. And it's, I feel like it's just a nice Saturday, even when it's cold and snowy and we're all bundled up outside. But it's a good kind of like team bonding a little bit too. But it feels good to help your community out.
Coach Murphy from Alabama always says the best leaders are servants. So from a coach, watching your girls be able to serve people, how much do you think that affects their leadership on the field? How much do you see that kind of build their ability to lead their teammates, being able to go out there and serve people?
When you look at other people as more important than yourself, and you just put yourself, I guess behind the other person, regardless of if it's in the community or on the field or in the classroom or whatever it is, it just makes you have more of a grateful heart. And I think that all in all, that they'll be, more positive and better people. But I love watching them change into, the young women that they are. That's probably been my favorite part so far. And it's cool to see, especially like these girls step up into leadership roles now that I've been around, but as a head coach for the second year. So I
was going to say 2 years in a row where this team has knocked on the door, getting to regional finals, getting really close to winning those games. How much does that really help you guys? And then how much does it make you guys hungry to break down that door this year and not knock anymore, just break it down and try to get yourselves to a state semifinal?
Yeah, the girls are ready. They're the ones who set goals for themselves as a team. I obviously have input too, but all their goals would be my goals anyways for them. But they have to own their goals, and they're hungry. They want to do better. They want, even though it was a great season, and we have a lot to say and have accomplished a lot. But they're ready. And so I think that it does push them to want to go that next step, to do a little bit more this year, so that way at the end of the season, they're ready for it.
All right, Coach, before we let you go, I want to give you the chance to highlight your staff and the people that you have behind you that make Ursuline softball what it is, because we know you don't do it alone. Even though you get the interviews and the limelight, we know that you have a great set of support behind you making the softball program what it is. So who have you brought on this year, and who's some of your assistants that are making this program so good?
Yeah, you said it. I honestly couldn't do it without them. I'm grateful for them. They get to hear me, especially when, we get canceled in the middle of the day and yada, yada. But Coach Rebecca Hartz, she was an alum at Ursuline. She's been a coach for 10 years now at Ursuline, and, worked with Kernan. And so she has a lot of heart and soul into the school and the program. And so, she's my right-hand man. Then you have on the JV staff, Coach Chelsea Rezo. She has lots of good travel ball and pitching experience, and she is going to be great. I know, stepping up into the head role at JV. And then Coach Dan Dankovich, he helps out with hoops, girls hoops, and he is just a great asset and addition to our coaching staff. As most coaching staffs are right now, I feel like it's a little small, but that means we'll be close knit and take on some good responsibility. So,
Coach, we're so excited to see you back in action. Give a shout out to when your first game is and when the Irish fans can first come watch you guys play.
So Saturday, March 25th at YSU. JV, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure JV starts at 10 a.m. Against Field, and then we'll play directly after them. We'll actually play a doubleheader with Field and then Warren Harding.
Wow, opening the season with a doubleheader on a Saturday. Yeah. That's a great way to open the season. It'll be a busy day for Ursuline fans. They can go watch you guys doubleheader in the afternoon, and then head on down to Youngstown State and watch Lily Scott and Jaden Payne and Terrence Pankey all play in the All-Star game at YSU for basketball. So hopefully it's a really busy day for Ursuline fans. Hopefully the weather cooperates and we can get you all that squared away. Coach, thank you so much for your time, giving it to us and being able to preview the softball season. We wish you the best of luck this year. We can't wait to talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
That was Christina Dugan, the head coach of the Ursuline Irish softball team, previewing the Ursuline softball season, which I think is going to be really exciting. I think they're a team that's right on the precipice of being a regional champion. I think they can do it. Obviously, softball has a lot of fickleness to it, so you never know how it's all going to shake up. But they definitely have what it takes. They have the pitching, they have the hitting, they play really good defense. I think Ursuline's going to be okay this year as far as they go. They're going to be up in Division 2. So a couple of new faces in the tournament than what they've been used to. But they're definitely up for the task, I think. That's going to do it for today's episode of Running Point. Tomorrow, we have Scotty joining the show. It's going to be our first Wednesday without wrestling in a while. So we're gonna have fun. We're going to have Scotty on the show. It's going to be a fun time from 1 to 2 tomorrow. Don't miss a minute of it on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you all